Hey guys, Ken here from Crosshair Games X. I'm here reviewing the SK650 low profile keyboard from Cooler Master. And this is a keyboard I've used for weeks now, and I've gotten used to it and I've played through it. As you can see, some of the wear on it, I've been typing and playing that much. It is low profile keys, but technically because of the cherry reds, sorry, it's not that low profile. It's actually kind of chunky. You know, size wise, it's not very low profile in the way of being thin and being very close down to the table. This is about the size of a normal keyboard, but with keys that are flat and you don't have to push as much because they're cherry red low profile instead of, cherry red mechanical that everyone else uses, or blue, cherry blue. This keyboard for typing, let's just get this out of the way, is really bad, and it's probably the quietest keyboard I've ever used. But I find because of the lack of texture, contours on these keys, you end up actually pressing in between letters a lot of the time because you can't differentiate this from this. I use this for weeks now, and I've been playing a lot of Hunt Showdown and doing some really good stuff on it, and it feels kind of fine, when you're in a tense situation, sprinting and jumping, but to be honest, when you're sprinting and you're reloading and you're using, which is F, interacting with things and reloading, those two can blur, as well as the dark side buttons. So E, R, and F start to blend together when you're in a tense situation. The RGB is really cool. I'm not going to show that off here, obviously. RGB is top of the line, to be honest. Keys aren't interchangeable. It's a very proprietary cap for these keys. But, I mean, even for gaming, the force that you have to push down with is a little more than what you'd expect for a keyboard with keys that look like this. So yeah, it's a beautiful looking keyboard, as you can see. It's just the force that you have to press down for a low profile, the way the keys blend together. If you're really in need for a keyboard with keys this flat, because you don't want to you're like me and you don't want to lift your fingers too far up, just get another cherry red keyboard with more contours in between the keys so you can actually differentiate between R and E or something. Because when you're, as I said, when you're doing stuff, E, and you gotta reload a lot of the time because you're moving your mouse and all this chaos is happening, E and R and F just get crazy as well, because sometimes in games you've got V as melee, and space and V don't seem to differentiate each other when you're in a hurry. Especially MMOs, when you have to use 1, 2, 3, 4, it's, it's very hard to differentiate 1, 2, 3, and 4 from each other. And let's say you're like me and you have really big hands and you press 1 with your middle finger just because your middle finger is long enough instead of your ring finger. Your pointer finger is going to go to W or E, and you're not going to go back down to D because of the lack of any texture on these. This is USB-C. It's a beautiful keyboard, I've got to admit. It feels somewhat solid. You could bend it a tiny bit if you apply some force, but otherwise, I'd say just go with a keyboard that, if you're searching for true low profile, this is not the keyboard for you. Very close down the desk like a Mac keyboard. If you're searching for in gaming like FPSs and you're fine with muscle memory, your muscle memory is just, to differentiate from keys, you have a certain muscle memory, and to differentiate from these keys you have to have a much better muscle memory than you already have, because it's just so hard to differentiate anything. But I mean, that as well in typing, it's the same thing. You find a lot of the keys, because of how wide they are, just contacting your finger, the ones, you know, the keys that you're not trying to type with. Yep, it's a great keyboard, and I love the build of it. It feels expensive. It looks good, nice and flat. It looks nice and industrial. It's just, if you're really into FPS and, you know, really games that require WASD and the surrounding buttons in rapid succession, I wouldn't recommend this, to be honest. It's cool, it's good looking, but even weeks after, I believe, it's been a month and a half since I bought this probably, it's just, and from heavy use, as you can see, it's just not, I'm still not used to it. You know, that's the thing. Go buy a Corsair or something, low profile keyboard, Logitech. Just the lack of texture here and the lack of contours between keys makes this keyboard very hard to type with and very challenging to game with. If you want something different, something unique feeling, go for it, you know. But keep in mind that there are no mutes, there are no volume controls on this keyboard. So yeah, just a nice little overview from an honest person, not, you know, paid by Cooler Master, reviewing this keyboard. And I am a low profile, you know, primarily a low profile user. I've used high profile keyboards like MSI's keyboards, and I've used HyperX keyboards for a long time, especially with the cherry blues. It's just, as a guitar player, I don't pick my fingers up off the frets very high, and that kind of translated into playing video games on keyboard and mouse. You know, after 12 years of using a controller and playing guitar and switching to keyboard and mouse and playing guitar, it's just a much different world. And as someone that likes low profile keyboards a lot more for gaming than high profile, I would recommend getting, you know, Corsairs or Logitechs rather than this one, unless you want something very unique feeling and something you'd be determined to get used to using, then go for it. I mean, it's a great keyboard, it's just not for me.